What's up, y'all? What's going on? I'm Angelica with In God's Timing, and I'm coming to make this video to talk about mature parenting. And I'm gonna jump right on into it. But before I even can get into the mature parenting part, we have to look back at this generations, right? Because this stemmed from or triggered me from I've been seeing and hearing more women that regret having children. Um, Hate the men that they may have had children with or despise them, can't stand the women or hating them, a lot of animosity on top of, and my perspective, because I'm a black woman, is coming from not only things that I saw, things that I've been around, conversations that I had, things that we see on a day-to-day basis, even on social media, different common situations or scenarios. Other people I'm sure can relate, but I'm giving it from a perspective as a black woman and the black culture or the black community. But anywho, like I was saying, so with a lot of situations, like I said, you having more parents that are not wanting to deal with their kids, not wanting their kids, whether it be from abortions, whether it be just trying to deal, okay, male and female. You have more children, whether they're young or even adults, that have an animosity towards their parents, don't want to deal with them, don't want to deal with certain family members. So I just want to talk about it. Okay. Um, One of the things that, like I said, I was thinking about was thinking about the previous generations. Okay. Because nothing just happens. We see the same things happening over and over again. And now it's getting more ruthless as far as people's emotions. The Bible talks about how in the last days, people will, the love for many will wax cold. People grow cold hearted, right? Won't even have love or natural affection, women for their children. All of this is, prophecy, especially with the black community. So when I see these different things that continue to happen, and I get it, it's not, certain things that we deal with, it's not an easy pill to digest. And we have had a lot of our parents, mothers and fathers, that have helped cause a lot of damage that has rolled over into their children, their children's children. A lot of things that we didn't address or talk about or even understand or know, because you know how we do with black folk. We don't talk about a lot of stuff. We don't communicate a lot. We hold a lot of stuff in and we just keep going, right? It's hush hush. But now we're seeing the overflow, of those seeds maturing, as far as the hurt, the pain, the bitterness. And really what it boils down to, a lot of folk just hurt. That saying is true. Hurt people hurt people. So you think about it, like say back in the day, like our parents or our grandparents, you had some parents who their grandparents raised them, right? Or you may even have some who Papa was a Rolling Stone, where you may have had grandparents that were married, but the father or the grandfather or even the father had different children, with other women, right? Committed adultery and had other children. So even you may see these movies or which is real life still, where you think it's your cousin, but it might be your sister. How they may have 15, 16 kids, back in the day, 10, 15, different children, and all of them possibly were not from that one woman, your grandma. Even with the grandmas, same thing. Or the mothers, as far as the patterns we have seen. As far as parents either, possibly being alcoholics, on drugs, like I said, the infidelity in the relationships, those different things affect their children. They affect them as, as a couple, as a marriage, a unit. You even see cases or you hear about cases or situations where, say the father may have other kids and he may treat those children better than the children with his wife. We see that happen consistently, as far as in the black community. Even like I said, where you will have more children who are raised by their grandparents. So when we hear a lot of, conversations, like I said, at the end of the day, it's a lot of folk that's hurt, right? It's a lot of folk that's hurt and it's starting to come out more. The sins of the father do pass down to the third and fourth generation. So looking at it too from the aspect of those reoccurring curses, generational curses that come back, even though that individual has the choice to acknowledge it, address it, and deal with it. If you don't understand what you're dealing with, or you're not recognizing it, which a lot of us didn't, you'll be so deep into a relationship or so knee deep into certain things, you already more damage has already been caused. Because we know what a lot of times with relationships with parents, or even what many have done themselves, on the outside, looking in, you'll have a polished up marriage or a polished up relationship, with the kids or whatever, going to church every Sunday, this, that, and the third. But then behind closed doors, you got a whole bunch of mess that's going on, so then you got to think about it. Your kids see that, your spouses see that, putting on the front for the church or putting on the front for your family. And then some don't even care. So even we know with men too also that they can cheat, okay? But then when a woman does it, not only do they become insecure, but they can't handle it. So then that's when we begin to see those abusive relationships, different things that happen from that aspect. So when I talk about mature parenting, you got to deal with the issues first. Because even, and I'm just going to throw out different scenarios that come to mind. Because this affects our parenting now. This affects, as we see, a lot of things on steroids. It's heightened and it's accelerated. You have so many different people that, I think about, even for me, let me say this part. Because I used to see so many women that will be dolled up, dressed looking nice, but their kids, will be looking raggedy, right? Kids' hair not done, no decent clothes, not saying, I'm not even talking about name brand, I'm just talking about decent. But the mom will be looking bomb, she bad, got a bad body, she, hair all done, makeup, nails, all this other stuff. But then when you see the kids, they looking like that don't make sense. You looking good, but your kids looking bad. That was one of the things that stuck in my mind, even when I had children. So that was one of my biggest things, especially with having girls. And thank God for favor. I keep my girls' hair done. I like them looking nice. I talk to them about that, about caring about how you look, how you carry yourself. Okay, that's a big thing for me, because to me, on here, it's trifling for you to, especially even now we see it so strong, where women, you bad, you doing all this, have all the clothes and all this other stuff, but your kids, not looking up to par, looking as what they say ghetto and everything else. You got to care about how your kids look. That shows the immaturity even in some of those women, where even a lot of times what happens is folk didn't get a chance to really live their life before we had kids. So it's like a child stuck in an adult body, or a teenager stuck in an adult body, where you still wanting to party, have a good time, do this and do that, but you got kids now. So some things should be changing. Not saying you don't do nothing and don't live your life, but you have to learn how to maneuver. You have to learn how to function now, because you have other lives to take care of other than just yours. But when we see those patterns come in and we hear parents talking about their kids or their grandkids, and I'm one of those ones, I'd be like, look, I don't want to hear all that. Okay, especially now. You talking about, how family do, you talk about everybody else, but you did it, or your mama did it, or your grandma did it. But I guess when people get older, sometimes they forget where they come from, or where we as the next generation may get certain characteristics from, where we may get certain mindsets from. That's what I mean when I say we have a lot of parents that cause a lot of damage to their children, even just how they think. Okay, whether the father was around or not, at the end of the day, what are most women and men looking for? Even the children looking for love in all the wrong places. So say if you have a bad relationship or a toxic relationship and that doesn't work, you go to the next one, right? The next person, male or female, whatever, doing the same thing, looking for love, affection. We do that through sex. We do that through different things, just trying to feel loved. At the end of the day, that's the root of the issue. But if you didn't deal with the issues that you had prior to that relationship, now you just transferred all those issues that you had acquired on top of that may have passed down from your generation that you still may not be able to see. You passing it from relationship to relationship. So when you don't begin to take accountability or responsibility of, okay, hey, maybe it's me. You know, what is it? I got some underlying issues. You mask it, right? So then when we see all these dysfunctional relationships and dysfunctional families, or people overcompensating with things, a lot of it is to feel, like I want to be not only loved, but I want to show that I'm okay, that I'm all right, that I'm good. It's putting on the front, a flexing, whatever you want to call it. For the most part, that's a lot of what it's doing. So when I do hear, women, or even men, seeing more men, and you have some good men out there, okay? This is why it's important to heal, because just because you may have had some bad relationships, and this took me time to get here, okay? So this don't happen overnight. But just because you may have had some bad relationships with certain men doesn't mean every man is bad, right? You got some that are still boys, but they may be a man in age, adulthood, right? Same thing with women. Just because you may have had, men may have had some bad relationship with different women, right? Doesn't mean that every woman is the same, because first of all, we all different. When we keep drawing the same type of people, familiar spirits, that's all that is, that's drawing to you. They recognize what you like, that's all it is. It is spiritual. So we end up in the same type of relationship cycles and patterns. And we're trying to figure out how I keep getting the same type of man, but he just looked differently, right? But similar characteristics, similar issues, familiar spirits. So when we don't deal with those issues or those generational curses I mention all the time, which is the root of a lot of this stuff, it comes back again. So now you have a whole bunch of people, like I said, that are hurt, bitter, angry. You even have situations where, say, with women, say like our parents, because maybe their parents, as far as may have, say, been alcoholics, or they didn't have the best childhood or whatever, they want to do better, which every parent should want to. You want better for your child. So if they look up, and I don't say look up, but if, say, they meet a good man and get married and have children with them, they want, sometimes they'll overcompensate for what they didn't get. So we see a lot more dominant women, even in marriages or relationships, that have like that takeover spirit, right? On top of, because of the cycle and patterns, as far as broken homes, you have more strong women and more men that have fell back. Not in all cases, but in the mass majority. That matriarch, right? As far as the moms. So when that happens, okay, so you may have that mom, whether she's single mom, married, not married, whatever. She overcompensates for those children, right? So she may try to buy them all the nice shoes, all the nice clothes. You do push your children. It's important to have balance. So especially, say, with our men or our boys, you do that, and then later on, he's never had to take responsibility like that. You've done everything for him. It's cute when our kids are children, right? When they small, we act like, sometimes people do that, act like they little baby dolls, dress them all up. That's my little man. That's my little mama. It's cute then. Don't really hold them accountable, show them any responsibility, really teaching and guiding our children, right? So when they get older, they don't have respect. First of all, they don't have respect for you anymore. They become materialistic, okay? To where only thing, if I don't got the name brand shoes and name brand this, or if I don't have certain things, I cannot, most they kind of feel like they can't survive, you know. But at the same time, now when they get in relationships, they've been damaged. Even if the son or the daughters has seen you with a whole bunch of people, even though they're children and they're young, they may not be able to understand completely at the time what they're seeing. But as you get older, all of us have seen things or been around things that you may not have been able to digest at that time. But later on, as you get older, you looking back like, dang, mama had a lot of men in and out the house. Or daddy had a lot of women in and out the house. Or, I remember daddy used to do this, or mama used to do this. It begins to come back to your memory. So where now, you may try to act as if you were perfect and you didn't do anything wrong. Your children remember that. This is why it's important to be careful who you have around your kids. having all these different revolving door as far as men or women. Okay, because they're watching it. We lead by example. So that means the different examples that we see from our parents, from people around us, we unconsciously and consciously mimic those things. And you have many that will fall into that. Some may do different, but that be like a select few that choose to do different. And, you know, my daddy wasn't around, so I'm going to do better. Right? Or my mama did this, I'm going to do better. But when you still don't deal with certain things, it still can come back. It may not, certain things may not affect you, but it might affect your kids. You can't run from generational curses. You can't run from those underlying issues and those sins that we have touched, or even our parents. It's going to come back up again. So then when we start seeing all this sickness, this disease, all these different things, and you can read that in Deuteronomy 28, where you see that, where God is speaking to his people, speaking to Israel about, because of you all being rebellious, right? Not listening. Like I said, a lot of things we end up coming into later, we find out that curses that passed down from our ancestors, from our parents, and it just passed and passed because we didn't even realize it, didn't understand it. Some folk just don't care, get turned out, or not trying to find out what is going on here. Where are these cycles and patterns coming from? Where is this coming from? This don't make sense, right? It's different because it's as a collective. Even though you may have some families that may make it and do well, you still, even I'm talking about regardless how much money you have, what you did have, what you don't have, how much you made progress in life, it's certain issues that still end up coming up in our relationships, in our families, in our children. And then when people start battling or dealing with, whether it be, you know, we say mental health, battling demons or battling different situations, you're trying to figure out, where did this come from? But you ain't want to revisit those prior generations, those things that are happening now. It's like we have no choice to, because things are so transparent and on steroids. It's either you do it or you don't. So now, when I talked about the other day, you got women gone wild, men gone wild, children gone wild, everybody reckless, just on a whole, not everybody, but many people are reckless and damaged emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, drained. So now so many are vulnerable to where the enemy comes in all these different ways. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So when I was talking about what Deuteronomy, where it's different scriptures that, and you can read that on your own time, where it talks about how the women would not even have natural affection towards their children, right? Or even their husbands. Half of us not even married, right? That part was broken as far as the family dynamic and structure, right? Fathers not even having affection towards their children, their sons and their daughters. What do we see? That's prophecy. The very things that is in the Bible we're seeing unfold is prophecy. So when I hear people have certain conversations, and this is a part that rubs me even with women, you know, as far as like sons and daughters, you see certain things happening. Okay, let me say it like this. When it's your child, I guess it's different. So say if your mom had issues with a man, right? And she blamed him or whatever, you end up doing the same thing. But because, say, somebody else does the same thing, whether it be a sister, brother, family member, they're not going to treat them the same because it wasn't personal. It wasn't them. So, but when it's your child, you feel, and that part, okay, when it's your child, you respond differently. So let me see, what's another example, another scenario. So I have seen mothers that will have sons, that will have children with women, right? They're not married. And you have some situation where you have these crazy women, they got their block, they be doing too much. You do, right? Everybody's not like that, but you have some that like that. Then you have some that just want you to take care of your children. Do the right thing. I don't have time for those issues. Either way, the mama not going to like them. You have some of those cases. You have some that will. But in many cases, especially being that mama's boy, every woman that you end up being with, whether she's a good one or a bad one, or got issues or whatever, she's going to have issues with that woman. That's something that we commonly see. That's scripture too, right? So even when your mom might have went through the same thing with her mother-in-law or same situation with you, she don't see what she's doing. So when I say cycles and patterns, and like I said, even with our parents and not holding accountability, you wrong. Wrong is wrong. And I don't condone wrong. I don't care if it's a family member, a brother, a cousin, my own daddy, where I'm at now. If you wrong, you wrong. But because it's family or because it's my child, if that person is not taking care of their kids, and like I said, you have even now where you have a lot of women where they mamas taking care of their kids. Okay. You have the grandmas taking care of their kids while because they not finished living life, want to enjoy life. So now that responsibility, because somebody doesn't want to get put in the system and someone end up getting put in the system, and that's a whole nother story right there, to where the grandparents end up keeping them. You see that commonly. So even with some men, you will have men that they'll have all these different children. Come on, just like Papa, granddaddy was a Rolling Stone. You having all these different children with all these different women. Taking into consideration, first of all, we have to take responsibility. When you lay down and have a baby with somebody, male and female, it's both of you all's responsibility for that child, whether you married, not married, whatever. Many of us learned the hard way. But when you have that, when things are unbalanced, it brings on weight and stress. So a lot of times, like I said, I used to hear that saying that if a woman has children, those are her kids, as if they don't have a father. So that goes both ways, even with women. So let's talk about some of the different scenarios with women, right? So you do have some women. This is why it's important to heal. Stop having sex with folk. If you're not going to be together, go on and cut ties, them soul ties. Think about the priority is the children. Having a healthy relationship for the children. And some of those things is respect, communication, boundaries, okay, and balance. Okay, when you have children, those are vital things that are important. But the main one is stop messing with each other. That's where stuff get complicated and toxic. Because especially with women, we're emotional. Your feelings get involved, right? You end up basically, say you end up putting a fire out and then you end up starting the fire back up when you have sex with them again. Now you in your feelings, and then you have some of those females that want to key your car, out of spite, put them on child support, at the food, crazy, all kind of stuff. You have those situations because they're hurt, they're bitter because of you may have hurt them for real, right? You may have situations where the man has hurt the woman, and then when you have that happen over and over again, they damaged. But then you have some cases too where you may have a good man, regardless if you're together or not, that just wants to be there for his children. And you choose because you still got feelings for him, or you in your feelings, you want to be spiteful or hateful. It's not helping, it's hurting the kids. Because for one, they see all this and it's already divided because you have two separate homes, right? That affects the children. I'm saying all this because I want y'all to get a picture of why we see what's happening now. Why you got a lot of grown adults that are damaged, broken, turned up, turned out, bitter, angry, fighting. A lot of the root issues that we keep seeing coming back over again. So how can you have a healthy relationship when you ain't dealt with none of your past? It's easier said than done, whether you do or you don't. But now folk out here taking their kids out. We see higher rates of abortion. Okay. You know, you have to look at things. It's important, let me say it like this, to look at things from not only your viewpoint, but the person. So, and the thing too, even with women, they will sometimes do, if you with a man that don't take care of his kids, you just as shady as he is. Because a real woman would push a man to be in his children's life, if it's possible. Because some situations you have where you can't deal with folk, and I get it. But that's what a real woman does. But even like with our grandparents and our parents, how as long as he take care of my kids, I'm good. So when granddaddy had that mistress that he had kids outside of his marriage, that mama or grandma had to accept, your other sisters and brothers, right? What happens? Same thing again. So then you see that cycle again where it's a possibility you treat those kids better than you treat your other kids. They all your kids. I respect men that have a relationship with their kids. Yes, we make mistakes, but then at some point, you got to get it for yourself. That's men and women. When we keep, which is insanity, when you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, it's insane. So that's when we have to self-reflect on ourselves. So even some that don't even have children, certain issues that they may have experienced in their childhood, all of this goes back to our childhood. Certain things that they saw, certain things that they may have been deprived from, having a mother, not having a mother, father there, not, all of that affects going into your adulthood. And it affects every relationship, your intimate relationships, your friendships, your job, everything. It affects every aspect of your life. So even when Deuteronomy talks about, because of us being disobedient and the cursings that have come upon us, even the plagues of Egypt, sickness and disease, a lot of things are spiritual. So we try to fight natural things or understand natural things that are spiritual. So when you see this person had diabetes, that person had diabetes, this person had diabetes, right? Or this person died of cancer, that person died of cancer. This, certain cycles and patterns. Mama had kids out of wedlock, sister had kids, certain cycles and patterns. That's when we have to get to that realization. Okay, this is a cycle, right? This is a generational curse. That means this happened from generation to generation to generation. I don't care how much you may feel like you have arrived and did better, your child end up dealing with it. But because you good, this is what I see a lot. The parents think they good. Now your child is battling relationships, battling with their own children. So even you'll have sometimes where you have people or parents that because they didn't do right by their kids, they overcompensate for the grandkids, right? Where they're trying to and let's just be real, it is what it is. We see that a lot of times we won't say that that's what it is, but because you feel that I wasn't in your life like I should have, or maybe the grandparents took care of the child, or I was living my life, instead of just acknowledging that. This is why a lot of kids is hurt too, because parents just brush over that and won't acknowledge that, hey, I wasn't in your life. I wasn't. And they may not, y'all. They may not tell you that. But then when you see that happen again, it's like, okay, now you're trying to live through your grandkids. Let me be there for them, which is helpful and is a blessing. But you still didn't acknowledge, the reality of it. It's because you were guilty. You felt bad. But then some will say, they don't have to do anything. At the end of this, I look at it, them your kids. When you have children, those are your kids, you and their father's kids. You don't have to make it nobody has to do anything. You can't make anybody change. So even when you see even men, because I'm getting on men and women, come on, balance. Even when you have men that would chime in on certain conversations, as far as like say child support, if you ain't taking care of your kids, you not in the same category with a man that does take care of his kids, and the mother may have put him on child support out of being shady. If you're not taking care of your kids, then that's why you own them, to be held responsible, to be accountable. Is to take legal action to force somebody to take care of their kids, because it's not easy being a parent, period, mother or father. No, women, you can't be the mama and the daddy. You the mama. The daddy can't be the mama and the daddy. He's the daddy. We have our specific roles, and they are necessary for the building of that child, right? Healthy mindset, thinking, everything. The balance of both is necessary. This is why I say we have to address certain issues, right? Because you end up having your kids hating their parents. Okay. And it's not easy. But I would say the worst is honor thy mother and thy father, even when people hurt you. It's not easy. But you end up having children growing up hating their fathers and then hating men. And the same thing with men. They will hold their moms at the highest standard of regard most of the time. But even though they may have internal issues towards their mama, whether it be because their daddy left or things that they saw, whatever it is, they still gonna hold her at a high regard for the most part. But they gonna take their issues out on that woman that they date or that they marry. So now she getting hell because of stuff he didn't want to deal with you about or talk to you about as far as the mom. Same cycles and patterns. So then we keep seeing these broken homes, these cycles of toxic relationships. And a lot of times, like I said, with women, and because I've grown and matured, I've gotten to a point where I don't like to entertain certain conversations. I had to have my phase of healing, forgiving, and it's not easy. It's certain things that would trigger you, especially when you aren't one of those ones. Speaking for myself, I don't like drama. I don't feel like dealing with all that fighting back and forth, the bickering. I shut the city down. I cut that stuff off. I'm not going to deal with all that. Because for one, like I said, everything that our kids see, it affects them from the mother and the father, right? Whether they're there, not there, arguing, fighting, abuse, all those things affect our children. So because I began to recognize and God began to deal with me with every aspect of my life, it showed and taught me how to help my children, right? And even with me, those very things that you try to fight, they come up. So I've had that happen. That's how I can talk about it. Where those very things that I've had happen in my childhood or generation or my parents or grandparents, I've had to deal with my children. So even that's why I say, even for mothers and fathers, those things come back. So even if I have friends or homeboys, I tell them, cousins, whoever, you need to, that's your child. Okay, that's not your mama child. That's not, no. What grandparents choose to do is extra. It's a blessing. We thank God for grandparents. I thank God. But that's not their responsibility. But because some parents even enable their adults, why should they take care of the kids if you're going to do everything? They haven't learned responsibility. But that's where that guilt trip, that manipulation, which is nothing, a lot of it, which is witchcraft, manipulates you into feeling guilty for not being there. You can't control the past, right? It's not going to change anything. I got to a point where God dealing with me, whether they do or they don't, whether people change or not, what you going to do? Because it's not going to fussing and fighting or becoming angry, which, those are real emotions. It's not going to change anything. So you have to find a common ground for yourself. And like I say, everybody's situation is different. And that's why I say it's important to, even for women, to cut ties, them soul ties with men that you have children if you're not together anymore. So you can move on and they can move on. But it's boundaries on top of having respect. Okay, as far as y'all children, if that person is married, respecting his wife, vice versa, respecting her husband. Okay, instead of having all these toxic relationships. And at the same time, those spouses, understanding that you have to take in consideration, they have kids together. Because a lot of folks have insecurities that trickles off into all of this type of stuff. And it's toxic. So it's been like a heightening of, I said, they be talking to me about stuff, and I be telling folks, don't share your business with everybody. Be careful who you share stuff with. But I guess folks just like talking to me, releasing stuff. But you end up having so many women that are hurt and broken and bitter. And really what it boils down to, they hurt. Especially if you were with somebody for years. I ain't talking about no one night stand. I ain't talking about, one hit a quitter types. I'm talking about if you're in a relationship with somebody, you give them your time, your energy, your heart, and they break your heart, whether it be male or female, it does damage. Especially when you have kids involved. When you don't have kids involved, you still hurt, but you don't have no ties like that, besides breaking that soul tie from sex. But other than that, you don't have no ties. But when you still have something that y'all have a connection with, you can see the difference as far as the anger, the heightening of the emotions. But like I said, respect for each other. Understand it takes two to take care of children. So like I said, when I hear the men and the women bickering back and forth, you're not helping anything when you keep the children away from the father. Like I said, every situation is different. But men and women have to mature. That's why I call it mature parenting. You're going to have to deal and face with your issues from your parents and your grandparents so you can be better parents for your children. Okay, being a healthy, learning to have healthy relationships. so you can heal, so you can grow, right? But that comes with respect. Respect, men respecting the women and women respecting the men, and having those boundaries, being able to communicate. Because you got a lot of adults that are like children where you can't even communicate and have a conversation. And that's the problem, because you have more single parent homes or moms that have, I don't say baby dies, that ain't even a word, but kind of damage their sons. Okay, not all of them, but damage too many of their sons. They may not know how to be a man, especially if their father wasn't around. This is one thing I had to learn. Put it this way: if a man didn't have a role model or an example as far as other men in his life, whether it be a father, or uncle, a cousin, that were the proper mentors and examples, he doesn't know how to be a man. He has to learn. At the same time, you may have some that they take that as fuel, and that makes them want to be better. That's a select. So then you have more men, they don't know how to be men, but we end up in relationships with these people. Same thing with women. If she's her mom and aunts and cousins that have been hurt and damaged, come on, hurt people hurt people. That mindset where they talk nothing about, talk bad about men because of their relationships, their problems. That's that. Now that's that woman's viewpoint. That's all I know, that all men are dogs. Come on, that's what we talk about. So now we go into our relationships like that. And you may possibly get a good man. The stereotypical thing that everybody got to have a thug and, this dysfunctional, toxic stuff, it's not healthy of what we consider to be a good man. So now you even have other races where it's supposed to be cute now to have a thug and, all this. You want a strong man, but now maturity. Because now we keep seeing a lot of broken children, teenagers, fatherless homes. Father's Day is coming up. And like I said, because you've been hurt does not mean that every man is a bad man. I got homeboys. I have cousins. I have family members. Awesome men. Awesome fathers. I ain't saying they perfect, but they in their kids' lives. Even some that are trying to do better. And that's the thing too. You may have some men that made mistakes and they might have did you wrong, but they may have got that light bulb and that wake up call where they want to do better. Let that man be in his child life, right? I'm not saying tolerate disrespect and abuse and stuff like that, but that's when we have to step up as parents, because it's not easy being a parent and what it consists of every day, not just financially. You got appointments, you got emotionally, physically. It comes with so much with being a parent. We all know that are parents, right? When you become a parent, that's the realest teacher for us that now have kids, right? So for growing up, when our parents used to tell us this, that, and the third, we didn't get it. But with some of us, when you become a parent, you be like, okay, I get it. It's not easy. I ain't perfect either. Then you can be more compassionate to your parents when you healed. Understanding that some not going to say sorry. Some don't feel like they wrong. That's why I say we have so many dysfunctional things that have taken place in the Black community that has affected our well-being psychologically. So much damage on top of everything else that's going on. The blame Black, everything else. The dysfunctional with the everything else. So when you put all these things together, you got a reckless culture. So when we begin to see things, and like I said, it's prophecy, how, I mentioned before, look at it like this. If it's your child, if you got a child and they friend and they get in trouble, you're going to get on your child more because you expect more out of them. You'll be upset with that child or that cousin or whoever the other person is also. But because that's your child and you've raised them, or, you want what's best for them, you work hard, you take care of them, you expect more out of that child. Unless you're one of them parents where you're trying to be your child's best friend and live through your children the dreams that you didn't get to access, or, the things that you wanted. We see that happen a lot even with parents, where now they're living through their children. So basically, it may not be their vision and dream for their life, it's yours. That can cause damage too. Where they just want to make you happy, or, we're individuals. You got to give even your children the opportunity to be themselves. Because then we have even those Cain and Abel situations, okay, where you have a lot of sibling rivalry, where you even have siblings that hate each other in a bicker and don't talk. And then even taking into consideration when you have more than one, I don't like to say baby daddy, more than one father of your children, more than one dad for your children, or more than one woman for your, that has your kids. It ends up making toxic situations. So now you're trying to balance. First of all, if you're not taking care of your kids, that's like having a football team. Takes us right back to granddaddy as a papa was a rolling stone. Everywhere you go, you laying your head down. So you can talk about the women, and the women can talk about the men. We can talk about this generation and our children, but then let's rewind back and look at our parents' parents. Same cycles and patterns. Only thing that's happened is gotten worse each generation. So what they say, what is it, Generation Z or whatever, the newer generation, and maturity is on levels. Because I've seen some people that are in this generation, as far as 90s babies, that really are actually mature. Some of them not. It just depends on the person, depends on your upbringing. But I've seen so many from different backgrounds that have been hurt, and people like, how are you hurt and upset? I've given you everything. You have, but it's something underlining. Money ain't gonna fix it. Okay, giving them the houses, the cars, shoes. Yes, those are things that you want a better life for your kids. But it's something, an underlying root that has affected that child or that adult that you missing. But you only think because I gave you everything is perfect. It's something that they battling. So then when they end up in relationships with people, you thinking how they get with them, or what made you do that? You seeking affection and love, somebody to understand you, right? So even when women overcompensate for their beauty, their looks, even when the world, this system has utilized us to in a negative way, right? It was all a part of the plan. But if you don't wake up and pay attention, because now you have so many children and adults that are growing up and that are now damaged and toxic. Because even now, when you haven't had to really take responsibility your whole life, and you finally do have to take responsibility and be accountable for your stuff, that's when we see the abuse. That's when we see people snapping, can't handle the pressure, because you've never really been responsible. You never really, and I'm not just talking about paying bills and stuff. I'm talking about being accountable as a whole, even with kids. Okay, even in relationships, just different situations when you have to really start becoming accountable in different areas. Everybody can't handle the pressure, because that's when we see more abusive relationships, or fathers or mothers taking the kids out because now I don't even want to deal with it. I'd rather take them out of here than to pay child support, or I'd rather abort them than to have another child. You laid down with them. That's a part of that accountability. We don't like to take responsibility. And I can say that because I mentioned in one of my other videos, I had an abortion. I had to repent. At the time, I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, I'm not going to have the other one by the same person. That was selfish. I was thinking about myself. A lot of the different things that we see and we experience is selfish. So until we begin to deal with certain things, first and foremost, like I said, our own issues, and self-reflect in the mirror, it's like a spiraling out of control, a domino effect. And I mentioned probably like almost every video, you have more parents burying their children. So you have a lost generation that is just seeking for acceptance. top of, like I said, you got this shady system that makes it harder for the Black community, you know, as far as just as a whole. Those underlying things that we ignored. Yes, because you may have made it, that's good. Help somebody else. This is why I say it's important to look at things from different perspectives, because just because you may have gotten out, or you may things from your daddy, because you can have a family of 5 and they all are affected differently. They all respond differently. Their relationships will be different. They may have some things, similarities. They all maybe lived in the same household, but everybody may not be affected the same way. So you may have some that end up can't get right, where they just they have hatred towards maybe the mama, the daddy, everybody they meet, relationships that can't get right, spirit, end up trying to cope with drugs. You know, it's a spiraling. Then we sit and talk about them. They may not be as strong to bounce back. But then too, the strong get weak too. Iron sharpen iron. That's why it's so vital for me to even the desire I was led to even talk about this stuff, because we point the finger so quick. And you got folk that got skeletons in their closet. Don't think about that you may have possibly helped contribute to this. So you have even some women, they don't know how to be a mama, may not know how to be a woman. I had to learn. And some stuff was innate. That was me. I just jumped into it. From remembering seeing different things growing up, certain things that I was around. You use those things. That's why I say being mindful of who you got your kids around. Because if you are even a woman, it pisses me off when I hear about kids being touched wrong, because this has happened in our families, and our grandparents, great grandparents, cousins, aunties, uncles. Somebody got touched wrong. Different things happen because you had too many people in the house or around not paying attention. You know, a revolving door, too much in and out. When you're not paying attention, that's when the enemy seeps in. It could be somebody close. A lot of times it was somebody close that people got touched. So when I meet people, even have people that I know, and they share their story or their testimony or things that they experience, a lot of times things come from close. But because we ignored it and then we didn't want to talk about it, and you act like nothing ever happened, and then you have situations where when a loved one gets sick or they on their deathbed, or like they say, when your child become famous, or you know you begin to do well, that's when people want to come around. That's unfortunate. So then you wonder why even with some men and boys, when their fathers, when they have such a hatred towards men, they haven't been around authority like that. They've all only been around a female frequency for the most part. So even though they may not be sweet, they may not have a strong masculine energy because that's all they've been around. So even when you have manly men, some that end up becoming abusive because they don't know how to handle pressure. They don't know how to handle, and some women, your mouth is reckless. Yeah. Because I would have to pray too. So it just depends on the situation. That's just like bullying somebody or taunting. You keep picking at somebody. You don't think at some point they'll blow a fuse? That's with anybody. We are built differently. That's the biggest part. Like I said, what I talked about was respect. It's like I said, that's been a heightening too of the domestic violence. And then too, once you, after so many times, like I said, I learned the hard way. Don't ignore the warning signs, because the enemy will send you just what you want, what you desire. He'll be fine as wine, and she'll be a dime. And they be probably crazy as all outdoors. Don't know what, it could be anything behind that package, right? Don't ignore the warning signs. Learn from what you have experienced, or things that you've seen other people experience in your family, relationships, people around you. Learn from that so you can heal and grow and help somebody else. Because like I said, I tell folk, when you do that chiming in, you ain't doing it but adding fuel to the fire. Hurt people hurt people. So we have to learn to deal with our childhood, deal with those things from our past, so we can heal and grow. Because if we already, things this rough right now in our families and relationships and just the mindset, the immaturity of men and women right now and just how they think, what you think our kids will have to deal with? So a part of those generational curses, this is the generation. But like I tell folks, we ain't just fighting our stuff. We fighting our stuff that we touch. We fighting our parents' stuff that wasn't addressed and shut down. They parents' stuff. So we fighting generations of stuff in this generation. And there's something about them 80s babies. I don't know. But we are a part of the change. But at the same time, like I say, everybody has a choice. You can do what you want to do. You can stay bitter and angry. You reap what you sow. So even if folk don't do right, don't want to change, not in your timing, but in God's timing, folk will reap what they sow. You don't got to put your hands in it and be messy and, try to hurt nobody or key their car and all that stuff. Sometimes you got to cut folk, love them from a distance. Because when God does things, you stay out of trouble. Okay? Because we get messy. We get messy when we get to putting our hands in stuff. It gets messy. It gets dangerous and gets messy. Let the Lord do it. It's easier said than done. That's why it's important to not ignore the warning signs, but even too, knowing what triggers you. Because we know some people will do things to help trigger you. The enemy, he uses people, okay, to get up under your skin, to take you to that place where you be ready to snap. Because you have a lot of people that are mad, feel like they get away with everything. They think they're getting away. And there's levels to this. Nobody's getting away with anything. It comes back. So how many times have you seen where it comes to a point where that child or say that parent, not the child, but that parent may end up needing something, or when they begin to relive their life, right? Looking back, flashing back, and want to apologize. But then too, how many parents that have, or loved ones that have left this earth hurt, having broken hearts, numb, and didn't get right. So you got to want to heal for yourself. But then too, you got to learn from your mistakes. That's wisdom. When you begin to acknowledge everything, that's a part of your deliverance. Then you can heal. God's going to handle everything else. Even those that may have had a hand in it, that have helped contribute to the foolishness and made other obstacles on top of the things we deal with in our lives, God's going to handle all that. Everybody has to give an account for their part. So when we see this uprising in the wickedness, this is a time to get closer to God as far as your own relationship. Healing. Look at yourself in the mirror. Ain't nobody got a perfect body, got the members. Same thing. All these different things. We adapted from growing up. All of it just from upbringing, childhood, the root. So as I said, mature parenting. You got to become mature to be able to do that. Think about if it was you. Okay? Some may didn't have their mothers or fathers or may have been hurt. You do better. You know better, you do better. But when you don't, as I said, we all held accountable. And don't do things out of spite, men and women, boys and girls. Don't do things out of spite. Because you're not only hurting yourself, you're hurting the children. All right, so you all be blessed. Y'all have a wonderful day.